During my broke years, I impersonated my sister to take care of her blind fiance for 50 grand. The day he regained his sight, I vanished. We met again at a business interview. I was a nobody intern reporter, while he, restored to his former glory, was the powerful young heir of the Hayes family. He was being interviewed. I heard that during your illness you were indebted to your fiancée, Miss Chloe Williams, for her unwavering support. Are you two getting married soon? He smirked, raising his hand to reveal a ring. Yes, Chloe and I are getting engaged. Yet his gaze through his glasses drifted towards me in the corner. Before the interview, the room buzzed with gossip. The young heir being interviewed today is the head of the entire Hayes empire. I heard 5 years ago he went blind and was kicked out of the family. If it weren't for his fiancée's constant care, he'd probably be dead. Keep it down. I sat to the side, forcing a smile, my nails digging into my palms. Suddenly, Mark, the senior reporter mentoring me, turned. Hey, Anna. Grab me some water, will you? I just reached the water cooler by the door. When it swung open, a familiar figure filled my vision, my mind blinking. 3 years had transformed Ethan Hayes drastically. The once thin teenager was now tall and imposing, his features sharper. His once cloudy eyes were now cold and clear. Excuse me, he said flatly. His gaze sweeping past me like I was a stranger. He walked on stage flanked by bodyguards. As he passed, a crisp woody scent lingered. I froze. Then it hit me. The 2 years I'd spent with him were Ethan's darkest. Exiled and blinded by a car accident. Of course, he wouldn't recognize me. Good. By the time I returned with the water, the interview had begun. Ethan sat on stage, fingers steepled, calmly surveying the room, answering business questions. Suddenly, the side door opened. Chloe Williams entered, smiling at Ethan. Sorry, Ethan, darling. There was a holdup on set. I'm late. She glided to the seat beside him, her champagne gown shimmering. The room hushed, then buzzed with excitement. Mark, sipping his water, looked at me like he'd made a discovery. Hey, Anna. You and Chloe Williams, you kind of look alike. I forced a laugh. He's a movie star, Mark. You're too kind. Of course we looked alike. We were sisters. We heard that during your illness. You were indebted to Miss Williams for her unwavering support. Are you two getting married soon? My throat tightened as I watched Ethan. He smirked, revealing a plain silver ring on his left ring finger. See, the one I bought him years ago to cheer him up. It looked out of place on the wealthy heir. Yet he traced it with his finger as if oblivious. Yes, Chloe and I are getting engaged, he said, his gaze sweeping across the audience. Lingering on me for a fleeting moment before moving on. The microphone was passed to Chloe. Miss Williams, we hear you're currently filming director Lucas's movie. He rarely casts new actors. Did Mr. Hayes have any influence? She smiled, admitting, of course I'm confident in my abilities, but I won't deny Ethan's support and I absolutely deserve it. Her self-assurance earned the crowd's approval. Someone asked, do you share any stories of how you and Mr. Hayes supported each other during his difficult time? Chloe's smile faltered. In the awkward silence, time seemed to slow. Finally, Ethan chuckled, taking the microphone. Nothing much to tell. Our memories are for us to keep. Tears pricked my eyes. I gripped my pen. Looking down, closing my eyes brought back memories during his downfall. People had harassed Ethan once, protecting him. I was shoved down some stairs bleeding. The attackers ran. I got up pretending nothing happened and returned to his side. Let's go home. Ethan grabbed my hand. You're hurt. We're going to the hospital. I'm fine. I smell blood. His voice rose, tears spilling from his cloudy eyes like dust-covered stars. He pulled me close, his thin arms tight. He spoke but called me by my sister's name, Chloe. When I recover, I'll give you the grandest wedding in the world. After the interview, the sky darkened, a fine rain falling. Mark patted his pockets. Anna, I left my memory card inside. Grab it for me, would you? I hurried back inside, my shoes squelching on the wet floor. The elevator reached the first floor. The doors opened and I bumped into Ethan and Chloe. Chloe was talking to Ethan about filming, and he, despite his aloof expression, listened patiently. They looked intimate seeing me. Chloe's face hardened. Sorry, I mumbled, turning to take the stairs. Stop, Ethan said. I froze. Aren't you taking the elevator? Go ahead. I slowly turned, lowering my voice. Thank you, Mr. Hayes. He told me to use the elevator, yet blocked the way, staring. You were a reporter at the interview. I didn't hear any questions from you. I lowered my gaze. Mr. Hayes, I just graduated and returned to the States. I'm an intern. I don't have the privilege to ask questions. I see, he replied flatly. Lost in thought, Chloe glared at me. Let's go, Ethan. We're meeting Director Lucas and the others tonight. Ethan finally looked away. Let's go. Alone in the elevator. I was lost in thought. After my parents divorced, my dad took Chloe and became Mr. Williams, marrying into her mother's family. I hadn't seen Chloe since I could remember. 5 years ago, she'd suddenly contacted me. Give you $50,000 to pretend to be me and take care of someone. My mom had just passed, leaving a mountain of debt. I had no choice but to agree. I later learned that someone was Ethan Hayes, her fiance, who'd had his accident shortly after their engagement. A blind guy, a discarded heir. Who'd want to take care of him? She scoffed. If it wasn't for my reputation, I'd have broken it off already. Chloe's acting career was taking off. Afraid of being labeled heartless, she dumped this burden on me. Used to a privileged life. Ethan was bitter after the accident. In the beginning, he was constantly sarcastic. I was getting paid, so I didn't argue back. Until one day I visited my mom's grave and returned late. He lashed out. Chloe. Stop the act. You think I don't know you're disgusted by me. You're just staying for appearances. He stopped mid-sentence. I'd leaned down and kissed him. It was my first kiss. Clumsy and angry. More like a bite. Ethan went silent. His ears red. You. I nipped at his lip again. Then pulled back slightly. Bracing myself on his shoulders. Breathing hard. Feel that? Still think I'm disgusted. I returned to Mark with the memory card. He grinned. Good work, Anna. You're quick. Perfect timing. See, there's a dinner tonight. I'll introduce you to some people. Networking is key in this business. I thanked him. When we arrived, I froze. In the parking lot was a familiar black Rolls-Royce. Mr. Hayes, is he here tonight, too? Mark winked. That's the dinner I'm taking you to. Don't underestimate your old pal Mark's connections. Too late for regrets. I followed him inside. Thankfully, the room was huge. Small-time reporters like us weren't even at the same table. As Ethan Mark introduced me to several senior reporters. This is Anna Taylor, our newest recruit. Smart kid, Anna. Say hi to everyone. Being the newbie, I had to make the rounds with toasts. By the end, I was dizzy. Muttering an apology, I rushed to the restroom. I rinsed my mouth, splashed cold water on my face and stepped out. The hallway lights were dim. A familiar figure stood by the window in the shadows. My heart pounded. I tried to slip past unnoticed. Anna Taylor. Ethan's low voice stopped me. I froze, swallowing hard. Hearing his footsteps approach. I closed my eyes. The footsteps stopped in front of me. A familiar scent drawing closer. I opened my eyes to his deep, dark gaze. Mr. Hayes. My throat was tight. How do you know my name? He was silent for a moment. Then straightened. Your mentor was introducing you while you were making toasts. The whole room knows your name. Thinking of Mark's booming voice. I blushed. I'm sorry. He's very enthusiastic if we disturbed you. Mr. Hayes, I apologize. I stammered, afraid of getting Mark in trouble. Ethan remained silent, studying me with a faint smile. Do you think I'm someone who holds grudges? Miss Taylor? I mumbled. That's not what I meant. Golden Boss business card was offered. You're still an intern, right? Interested in a job opportunity? The next day, my boss called me in. Anna, we need you on that popular live relationship talk. Show as a guest commentator. Prepare yourself. Later. I found out the next episode's guests were Ethan and Chloe. Their engagement had been trending since the interview. A publicity stunt for the show. Daisy, the host, was reviewing the script, chatting with me. If we can dig up the story of Mr. Hayes and his fiance, during those 2 years, the ratings will skyrocket. I gripped my pen, quietly agreeing. I knew every detail of those 2 years, but I couldn't say a word. With Hayes' resources, Chloe was now an A-list actress. The live stream began, millions tuning in. Under the spotlight, Daisy began. We hear wedding bells are ringing for you and Mr. Hayes. Can you share your journey? Chloe smiled at Ethan. I never believed the rumors and accusations against him. He's always been the one I love. She gazed at him adoringly. Ethan chuckled. Liar. Have you forgotten how much you despised me when I first went blind? Chloe froze, glancing at me with venom. On camera, she forced a smile. I don't really remember. I guess as our love grew, I only remember the sweet parts. I glanced at the live comments scrolling by. So sweet filled the screen. I put down the script, gripping the microphone. Addressing Ethan. It seems you two have differing opinions. Is there more to the story? Perhaps you could share how you two worked through it. I didn't expect him to answer. But after a pause, he spoke. When I first lost my sight, I was depressed, angry at the world. And I didn't like her. He worked long hours and still took care of me. One day she was so tired, she left fish stew on the stove. Went downstairs to buy salt and forgot to turn off the heat. By the time she came back, the kitchen was on fire. My throat tightened. I was back in that moment. The heat of the flames lingering in the air. I dragged Ethan out of the room. Grabbed his collar and slapped him. Are you trying to die? I yelled. My whole body trembling. He didn't fight back. After a long silence, he croaked. Wouldn't it be better if I died? Wouldn't it be a relief for you? In that moment, I realized the once arrogant heir was now a broken, insecure puppy. I shoved him into his room. The walls were blackened by the flames. I unbuttoned his shirt. I missed dinner. You owe me. He seemed to understand. Are you sure? I silenced him with a kiss. Ethan, you're not a burden to me. My improvised questions uncovered unknown details, making the interview a huge success. By the end, over 10 million were watching. I was the first to unearth the hidden story of the heir. Everyone was ecstatic. Stage Daisy patted my shoulder. You're a natural. Those on the spot questions were brilliant. She turned and saw Ethan and Chloe approaching. She went silent. Ethan's gaze swept over us. You prepared the questions today. I nodded. Chloe said sweetly. Miss Taylor, you certainly know how to hit a nerve. But let me remind you about professional ethics. Don't aim for what's out of your league. I said nothing. Looking at Ethan. He remained impassive. Miss Taylor is very capable. She'll be our media contact from now on. Chloe's eyes widened with fear and hatred. After work, a familiar Rolls-Royce waited across the street. The window rolled down, revealing Ethan's impassive face. Is Taylor. Since you're so curious about my past, why not ask me directly? I lowered my head. I wasn't crying, Mr. Hayes. It was for work. Even for work. You have my personal card. You could have contacted me. I bit my lip. It wasn't necessary. I realized this wasn't 3 years ago. He was the powerful Ethan Hayes. Not the insecure boy who'd crave my kisses after being scolded. The Williams family was struggling. Without Ethan's support, Chloe wouldn't dare target me so openly. Perhaps those 2 years were a shameful memory he wanted buried. I turned to leave. Stop. He stepped out of the car, blocking my path. Miss Taylor. Can we talk? I clutched my bag. What do you want to talk about? Mr. Hayes? He smirked. Work? Is that acceptable? Over the next few weeks. Ethan met with me twice to finalize details for the conference. Finally, he handed me a document. This major tourism project hasn't been announced yet. It's a direct collaboration with the state. You can announce it at the conference as your exclusive scoop. I took it, thanking him. The day of the conference arrived. The venue was packed. Ethan's seat remained empty. Under the spotlight, I announced Hayes Corp's upcoming partnerships. Suddenly, a reporter yelled. Where did you steal this confidential information? I frowned. My collaboration with Hayes Corp is entirely legitimate. Legitimate? You slept your way to the top. You have the nerve to say that. He shouted. I have proof. Chloe walked on stage staring at me, sighing dramatically. Taylor. It's understandable you'd be attracted to Ethan. I wanted to spare you, but you're forcing my hand. The screen behind me switched from the presentation to explicit photos of me. These are the photos you sent him. You knocking on his hotel room door in a slip at midnight. And security footage of you and your boss checking into a hotel. The screen changed again, showing me entering a hotel with my boss. You're a habitual offender. The room erupted. The doors burst open. Ethan strode in, his gaze sweeping across the room, passing over me without stopping. My heart sank. The spotlight glared on me. A public execution, murmurs filled the room. Disgusting, a disgrace to journalism. She should be fired. I stared at Ethan, watching him turn to Chloe. What did you just say? Chloe teared up. Ethan, you've been tricked. She pretended to be an interviewer to steal confidential information. To harm Hayes Corp, even this hosting gig. She slept her way into it. Ethan paused looking at me. Do you have anything to say? What could I say? I saw the triumph in Chloe's eyes. It was absurd. We were sisters. Only 2 years apart after our mother died. We should have been each other's only family. I smirked. I want to say this. Mr. Hayes, your fiance is lying. I only had professional interactions with you. Nothing personal. Nothing personal. Ethan interrupted. You gave me a ring. Aren't you going to take responsibility? The whispers in the grand conference hall died instantly. It was a silence so sudden, so heavy, that the hum of the air conditioning sounded like a roar. On the massive LED screen behind the stage, the fabricated, explicit photographs of Anna, carefully engineered by Chloe to look like a desperate intern trading her body for a story, shimmered in high definition. But no one was looking at the screen anymore. Every lens, every eye, and every whispered breath in the room had pivoted toward Ethan Hayes. Chloe's triumphant smile froze, her lips parted in a slight, ugly tremble. Ethan. She stammered, her voice cracking through the lapel microphone. What are you saying? The ring. I'm the one who gave you that ring. Don't you remember? When you were in the hospital, when the doctors said you might never see again. Ethan didn't look at her. He didn't even glance in her direction. His eyes, cold and sharp as winter ice behind his silver-rimmed glasses, remained locked entirely on Anna. Slowly, he raised his left hand. The plain, slightly scratched silver band sat humbler than any piece of jewelry a billionaire heir should ever wear. It looked out of place against his tailored Italian suit, yet he wore it like a badge of absolute honor. You gave me this, Chloe. Ethan's voice was dangerously quiet, but the microphone on his lapel carried it to every corner of the room. Then tell me. Where did you buy it? Chloe swallowed hard, her eyes darting to the audience, searching for her manager, her father, anyone. It was a small boutique. 5 years ago. Ethan, during the chaos. My mind was so occupied with your recovery, I don't remember the exact street. It wasn't a boutique, Ethan cut her off, his tone flat, devoid of emotion. It was a tiny, nameless silversmithing stall in the wet market 3 blocks from the dilapidated apartment we shared. It cost exactly $45. The girl who bought it for me had to skip her dinners for a week just to afford the metal. A collective gasp rippled through the press gallery. And Ethan continued, stepping closer to the edge of the stage, his eyes still burning into Anna's pale face. She had something engraved on the inside. Since you bought it, Chloe, perhaps you can tell the press what it says? Chloe's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, but only a dry, choking sound came out. She had never even touched the ring. In the 3 years since Ethan had returned to the Hayes family, he had never allowed her to slip it off his finger. She had assumed it was a sentimental piece of trash he kept to remind himself of his dark days, a prop to show the world how loyal he was to his savior. You don't know, Ethan said. It wasn't a question. He finally turned his head to look at Chloe, and the utter disgust in his eyes made her take a step back, her high heels catching on the hem of her expensive champagne gown. The inscription reads, "The stars still shine in the dark." Ethan's gaze drifted back to Anna. She engraved it because I told her I wanted to die. I told her a blind man was nothing but a burden, a shadow that deserved to be buried. She slapped me, she kissed me, and then she spent her last pennies to remind me that even in the pitch black, there was light. The reporters were frantically typing on their laptops now, the camera shutters clicking like a swarm of locusts. The narrative of the devoted movie star fiance was crumbling in real time, replaced by a scandal of titanic proportions. Ethan, please. Chloe cried out, realizing her entire career, her reputation, and her impending marriage into the Hayes empire were slipping through her fingers. You're being manipulated by her. She's an imposter. She's a nobody who wants your money. Look at the photos. Look at what she did with her boss. At that moment, the double doors of the conference hall opened again. A group of men in dark suits entered, led by a middle-aged man with a stern face and a legal briefcase. It was Arthur Vance, the most formidable corporate attorney in the country, and the personal legal counsel for the Hayes Group. Behind him walked Mark, Anna's mentor, looking entirely calm, alongside several high-ranking police officers. Mr. Hayes, Arthur Vance spoke, his voice projecting across the hall. The cyberforensics team has completed the analysis of the server that uploaded those images to the presentation screen. The IP address traces directly to a burner phone purchased by Miss Chloe Williams' personal assistant yesterday afternoon. Furthermore, the original, unedited footage from the hotel lobby has been recovered. The screen behind Anna flickered. The explicit, grainy photos vanished, replaced by clear, high-resolution security footage. It showed Anna, fully dressed in her professional attire, assisting an elderly, heavily intoxicated female senior editor of the publishing house into a hotel room, accompanied by 2 other female interns. The boss, Chloe, had accused Anna of sleeping with was nowhere in the frame. The entire narrative had been a crude, desperate patch job of cropped photos and deepfakes. This constitutes deliberate defamation, character assassination, and illegal Hacking of corporate presentation systems, Vance stated calmly. On behalf of the Hayes Group and Miss Anna Taylor, we are filing immediate charges. The room erupted into absolute chaos. Chloe collapsed to her knees, her gown pooling around her like a deflated balloon. No, this is a mistake. Dad. Ethan. You can't do this to me. But Ethan didn't look back. He stepped down from the stage, walking right past the weeping actress, right past the sea of flashing cameras. He stopped directly in front of Anna. Anna stood frozen, her hands still trembling, her heart hammering against her ribs like a trapped bird. She looked up at him, no longer the thin, broken young man she had held in the dark, but a powerful, commanding force who ruled an empire. You're still wearing the ring, she whispered, her voice barely audible over the din of the crowd. I told you, Ethan said, his voice softening, a warmth creeping into his cold eyes that only she could see. I'm waiting for you to take responsibility. An hour later, the storm had been locked outside. In the quiet, soundproofed VIP holding room on the top floor of the hotel, the air was still. The only sound was the steady patter of rain against the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking the city. Anna sat on the plush leather sofa, a warm paper cup of tea pressed between her palms. Her knees were still shaking. Across from her stood Ethan. He had discarded his suit jacket, his tie loosened, the first two buttons of his crisp white shirt undone. He looked more like the Ethan of her memories now, less like a fortress, more like a man. Why did you do it, Anna? His voice wasn't angry, but it carried a profound, heavy ache that made her chest tighten. Anna stared down at her tea. You know why. You saw the bank records. $50,000, Ethan said, a bitter, self-deprecating laugh escaping his lips. That was the price of my life? That was the price of 2 years of your youth, your tears, your blood? My mother was dying, Ethan, Anna said quietly, finally looking up to meet his gaze. The hospital was threatening to stop her chemotherapy. We had no food, no electricity, and a mountain of debt my father left behind before he walked out to join the Williams family. When Chloe approached me, I didn't care who the man was. I didn't care if he was blind, angry, or a discarded heir. I just needed the money to keep my mother alive. She paused, swallowing the lump in her throat. But, by the time I realized who you were, by the time I started caring, it was too late. I was already living a lie. I was using my sister's name. Every time you called me Chloe, it felt like a knife twisting in my chest. I knew that the moment you got your sight back, the illusion would shatter. Ethan took a step toward her, his shadow falling over her. So you vanished. The very morning the bandages were scheduled to come off. You packed your single suitcase, took nothing but your mother's old coat, and disappeared into the rain. I had to, Anna whispered, tears finally escaping her eyes and rolling down her cheeks. If you had opened your eyes and seen my face, a stranger's face, instead of the woman you thought you loved, it would have destroyed you. Chloe was beautiful, she was a rising star, she was the one your family approved of. I was just the shadow who kept you warm in the dark. I did my job. I saved your life, and I took my 50 grand. The transaction was complete. A transaction? Before Anna could react, Ethan was on his knees in front of the sofa, his hands coming up to grip her wrists. His grip wasn't painful, but it was ironclad. Desperate. Is that what you call it? He growled, his voice thick with suppressed emotion. When you stayed up for 3 days straight when I had a fever, wiping my brow with cold towels? Was that a transaction? When you took a blow to the shoulder from those debt collectors who broke into our apartment, bleeding on the stairs, just to keep them away from my room? Was that a transaction? Anna turned her head away, sobbing silently. Ethan, please. Look at me, Anna, he commanded, his voice cracking. Look at my eyes. Slowly, she turned her head. His eyes, once cloudy and lifeless, were now incredibly bright, burning with an intensity that terrified and thrilled her. Do you know what the first thing I saw when they took the bandages off was? Ethan whispered, his face inches from hers. It was Chloe. She was standing there, wearing a designer dress, smelling of expensive French perfume, smiling at me with perfect, practiced teeth. And my first thought was, who is this stranger? Anna gasped. I didn't need eyes to know you, Anna, Ethan said, his forehead resting against hers, his breath warm on her skin. I knew the sound of your footsteps. I knew the way your heart beat when I held you close. I knew the scent of wood and rain that followed you everywhere. The moment Chloe spoke, the moment she touched my hand, I knew she wasn't my light. She was just a ghost trying to steal your place. You knew? Anna's voice trembled. From the very beginning? I knew, Ethan confessed. But I was powerless. My family had just brought me back, but my uncles and cousins were still circling like vultures, waiting for me to make a mistake. If I had exposed Chloe then, if I had rejected the Williams family alliance immediately, they would have targeted you. They would have found the broke, defenseless girl who had pretended to be an heiress, and they would have destroyed you to get to me. He kissed her knuckles, his lips lingering on her skin. I had to play the part. I had to build my empire, secure my power, and wait. I spent 3 years searching for you, Anna. I searched every corner of this country, but you had changed your name back to your mother's maiden name and gone abroad. I almost went mad. And then, Anna whispered, a faint, watery smile touching her lips, I walked into your business interview. And the moment I saw you, Ethan said, his eyes darkening with a possessive, fierce warmth, I swore to God I would never let you run again. The fallout of the press conference was swift and merciless. By the next morning, the name, Chloe Williams, had become synonymous with fraud and cruelty. The public, which had once praised her as a loyal heroine who stood by her blind fiancé, now reviled her. Sponsors dropped her within hours. Director Lucas issued a public statement replacing her as the lead actress in his upcoming film, citing a breach of moral conduct. The Williams family business, already teetering on the edge of bankruptcy and relying entirely on the promised merger with the Hayes Group, collapsed under the weight of cancelled contracts and recalled loans. But inside the modest, quiet apartment Anna rented in the suburbs, the chaos of the high society world felt miles away. Anna stood by the kitchen counter, brewing a pot of simple chamomile tea. After the whirlwind of the previous night, Ethan's security team had escorted her back to her home, ensuring no reporters could get near her. She had expected Ethan to stay, but he had left her with a quiet promise, get some rest. I have to clean up the wreckage so I can give you a clean slate. A soft knock on the door broke her thoughts. Anna walked over and opened it, expecting a delivery or perhaps one of Ethan's guards. Instead, she found a disheveled, hollow-eyed woman standing in the hallway. It was Chloe. She was no longer wearing her designer gowns or her perfect makeup. Her hair was messy, her eyes red and swollen, her coat damp from the drizzle outside. She looked nothing like the glamorous star of the silver screen. She looked like the desperate girl she had been 5 years ago. Anna, Chloe whispered, her voice hoarse. Anna stared at her sister. A complex mix of emotions swelled in her chest, anger, pity, and a deep, aching sorrow for the family they could have been. What are you doing here, Chloe? Please, Chloe said, stepping forward, her hands shaking as she reached out to grab Anna's sleeves. You have to tell Ethan to stop. The police are investigating my finances. The banks are seizing our father's assets. We're going to lose everything, Anna. We'll be on the streets. Anna let out a quiet, tired sigh, stepping back to let her sister into the apartment. She closed the door. You brought this on yourself, Chloe. You tried to ruin my life yesterday. If Arthur Vance hadn't found the original footage, I would have been blacklisted from my career forever. I would have been branded a thief and a homewrecker. I was desperate. Chloe screamed, her facade cracking, her voice filled with a bitter lifetime of jealousy. You always had everything, Anna. Even when we were kids, Mom loved you more. And then I give you a simple job to take care of a blind, useless man, and somehow, you make him fall in love with you. Why? Why does everyone love you? He didn't fall in love with me because of a trick, Chloe, Anna said, her voice remarkably calm, though her heart ached. He fell in love with me because when he was lying in his own filth, cursing the world, I didn't look at him like a discarded heir. I looked at him like a human being. I washed his clothes, I cooked his meals, and I held him when he cried in the dark. You wanted the glory of being his savior, but you didn't want to do the dirty work. I paid you. Chloe yelled, tears streaming down her face. $50,000. That was a contract. You were my employee. And I kept my end of the bargain, Anna replied. I left the moment he could. See. I gave you your fiancé back on a silver platter. But you couldn't even pretend to care about him. You didn't even know what was engraved on the ring he wore every single day. You were so blinded by your own greed and vanity that you didn't realize he was playing you all along. Chloe fell to her knees, sobbing against the floorboards. Anna, please. We're sisters. We share the same blood. You can't let him destroy Dad and me. Please. Just tell him to drop the lawsuits. He'll listen to you. He loves you. Before Anna could answer, the door to the apartment opened. Ethan stepped inside, his presence instantly filling the small room. He looked at Chloe kneeling on the floor, his face completely expressionless, as if he were looking at a piece of discarded garbage. Behind him stood two tall, burly security guards. Mr. Hayes, Chloe gasped, crawling toward him, trying to grab his leather shoes. Ethan, please. Get her out of here, Ethan said flatly, not even looking down. The guards immediately stepped forward, lifting Chloe by her arms and dragging her out of the apartment. Her screams and pleas echoed down the hallway until the heavy door clicked shut, sealing them in silence once more. Ethan walked over to Anna, his eyes scanning her face, searching for any sign of distress. Did she hurt you? No, Anna said, her voice quiet. She looked at him, feeling a sudden wave of exhaustion. Is it over? The Williams family will face the full extent of the law for financial fraud and corporate espionage, Ethan said, his voice firm. But they will not bother you again. I have made sure of that. He stepped closer, reaching out to tuck a stray lock of hair behind her ear. His touch was incredibly gentle, a stark contrast to the cold authority he had just displayed. Are you angry with me for being ruthless? No, Anna said, leaning her cheek into his palm. I'm just tired of the shadows, Ethan. I've been hiding for 3 years. I don't want to hide anymore. You don't have to, Ethan whispered, his eyes filled with a deep, infinite promise. From now on, you stand in the light. With me. The transition from a quiet intern reporter to the center of the nation's attention was overwhelming, but Ethan shielded Anna with a protective wall that even the most aggressive paparazzi couldn't breach. However, Anna didn't want to be a bird in a golden cage. She refused to give up her career. Under the supportive guidance of her mentor, Mark, and with her name fully cleared, she returned to work. But this time, she was no longer a shadow dweller. She was a respected journalist, known for her sharp mind and absolute integrity. A few weeks after the press conference, Ethan took Anna to a place she never expected to see again. The Rolls-Royce pulled up to a familiar, run-down neighborhood on the outskirts of the city. The streets were narrow, the buildings weathered, smelling of damp earth and cheap street food. It was the place where they had spent those 2 long, difficult years. Why are we here? Anna asked, looking out the window in surprise. Come, Ethan said, opening her door and offering his hand. He led her up the dark, narrow stairwell of the old apartment building. The steps still creaked in the exact same spots. When they reached the 3rd floor, Ethan stopped in front of room 302, the very apartment where they had lived. He pulled a key from his pocket and unlocked the door. When Anna stepped inside, her breath caught in her throat. The apartment was not empty, nor was it dilapidated. It had been meticulously preserved and restored. The small, worn wooden table where they ate their meager meals, the old gas stove that had once caught fire, the small single bed with the faded blue sheets, everything was exactly as it had been 5 years ago. You bought this place? Anna whispered, her hand trembling as she touched the edge of the wooden table. I bought the entire building the month I regained my sight, Ethan said, walking up behind her and wrapping his arms around her waist, pulling her back against his chest. When I realized you were gone, I came back here. I sat in this empty room in the dark for 3 days, hoping you would walk through the door. When you didn't, I swore I would keep this place exactly as you left it. It was the only place where I felt alive. He turned her around to face him, his eyes deeply earnest. Anna, do you remember the night of the fire? Of course I do, she said, her eyes tearing up. I thought you were going to die. I was so angry, so terrified. You dragged me out, and then you kissed me, Ethan said, a soft, rare smile appearing on his face. You told me I wasn't a burden. But do you know what I realized that night? Anna shook her head. I realized that even if I never saw the light of day again, even if my eyes remained cloudy forever, I was the luckiest man alive because I had you, Ethan said softly. My family, my wealth, my status, none of it mattered. The only thing that made me want to fight, the only thing that made me want to regain my sight, was the desire to see the face of the woman who loved me when I had nothing. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a small, velvet box. But instead of opening it to reveal a massive, flawless diamond ring that a Hayes heir would typically present, he opened it to reveal a simple, slightly worn silver band, the exact match to the one he wore on his own finger. This is the ring you bought for yourself back then, Ethan said. You never wore it because you said we couldn't afford to be flashy. But I kept it. I found it in your old drawer after you left. He took her left hand, his fingers tracing her knuckles. Anna Taylor, you took care of a blind, broken man for $50,000. Now, I want to give you everything I own, my heart, my fortune, my life. Will you take responsibility for me forever? Tears of pure, unadulterated happiness spilled over Anna's eyelashes. She looked at the man who had survived the dark with her, the man who had fought his way back to the light just to find her. Yes, she whispered, her voice strong and clear. I'll take responsibility. As he slipped the simple silver ring onto her finger, Ethan leaned down, his lips meeting hers in a kiss that was no longer clumsy or desperate, but deep, lingering, and filled with the promise of a lifetime. 5 years ago, in a dark, cramped room, a broken young man had held a girl close and promised her, "When I recover, I'll give you the grandest wedding in the world." He kept his promise, but not in the way the high society expected. There were no massive media circuses, no red carpets crowded with socialites and celebrities, and no cameras flashing to turn their sacred day into a public relations stunt. Ethan knew Anna loved quiet, simple things, and he respected her peace above all else. Instead, the wedding took place on a breathtaking, private estate in the hills of Tuscany, surrounded by ancient olive groves and rolling vineyards under a golden, twilight sky. Only a handful of people were invited, Mark, a few of Anna's close friends from the publishing house, and the select few members of the Hayes family who had remained loyal to Ethan during his downfall. The ceremony was quiet and beautiful. Anna walked down the aisle not in a heavily embellished, multi-million-dollar designer gown, but in a simple, elegant silk dress that flowed like water around her ankles. She wore no expensive diamonds, only the simple silver ring on her left hand, reflecting the soft glow of the setting sun. As they stood before the altar, Ethan looked at his bride. His eyes were clear, bright, and filled with an emotion so profound it made her breath catch. "I spent 2 years in the dark," Ethan said, his voice carrying clearly through the warm evening breeze. "And during those 2 years, I learned that light isn't something you see with your eyes. It's a voice that comforts you when you want to give up. It's a hand that holds yours when the world turns its back. It's a love that asks for nothing but gives everything." He took her hands in his. "Anna, you were my light when I was blind. Now that I can see, I promise to spend the rest of my life making sure your world is never dark again." Anna's eyes shone with tears of joy as she looked up at him. "And I promise to stand by your side, through the light and the shadows, always." The guests applauded softly as they exchanged their vows, their voices sealing a bond that had been forged in the crucible of hardship and survived the ultimate test of time. Later that night, as the music played softly from the terrace, Ethan and Anna walked out to the edge of the estate, overlooking the quiet valley below. The sky above was a deep, velvet blue, dusted with a million brilliant, glittering stars. Ethan wrapped his arms around her from behind, pulling her close against his chest. The familiar, crisp woody scent enveloped her, making her feel completely safe, completely home. "Are you happy, Mrs. Hayes?" he murmured, his lips brushing against her ear. Anna turned her head, looking up at the vast, beautiful night sky, and then back into the clear, loving eyes of her husband. "I am," she whispered, resting her head against his shoulder. "The stars really do shine in the dark."